out just this morning. The State Department is being asked to investigate the use of personal cell phones by senior U.S. diplomats in the wake of the impeachment hearings. Joining us now, the reporter behind the story, NBC News national political reporter Josh Lederman. Josh, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on this. I'm going to go ahead and assume that this has something to do with the conversation between Gordon Sondland and the president, and that now Ukrainian restaurant that is at the height of much the talk of the testimony that we've heard so far.
That's a safe assumption, Yasmin. Yeah, people's jaws really dropped when they learned about this conversation where you had Gordon Sondland at a restaurant in public in Kiev with waiters coming and going, calling up the president from his cell phone, and then having a conversation with the president in public so loudly that several other people who were at the table with Sondland could overhear him. And we had another witness in this impeachment process call this poor OPSEC, bad operational security by the diplomats involved. And we know that it's not just Sondland, because as we've learned through these many hours of hearings, many senior U.S. diplomats were often communicating using their cell phones, sometimes texting with WhatsApp or via SMS message. And that's raised some real concerns about whether national security matters are being discussed in a laissez-faire manner that really puts them at risk. And we know that this is a particular concern in Ukraine because it is such an intelligence focus for the Russians. In the past, the U.S. has had incidents where a top diplomat's phone call was recorded and then leaked in an operation that the U.S. has blamed on the Russians. And when it comes to those cell networks in Ukraine, we had David Holmes, that senior U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, testified that U.S. diplomats in Ukraine regularly assume that because the Russians own at least two, if not all of the cell networks in Ukraine, that any communications they have there are being monitored. That meaning that President Trump's phone call with Gordon Sondland may very well have been listened into in real time by the Russian government.
So Josh, what do we expect to happen here? I know this is just the beginning of this investigation, but how do we see this whole thing playing out here? And is this just particular to the Trump administration, or has this been happening for quite some time?
We know of some incidents where this kind of thing had happened in previous administrations, although it does seem like there's been a more lax attitude in this administration that has facilitated some of this. So what happens now is that Senator Bob Menendez, the top Democrat on the Foreign Relations panel in the Senate, has asked the head of diplomatic in this investigation, and also to punish any people who are found to have been a security breach or to have violated policies on cybersecurity. He's now waiting to hear back from the State Department about what exactly they're going to do about this. We've asked the State Department and its Diplomatic Security Service for comment on that. So far, no response.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.